Can anybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay. No one's talking, right?
No.
Because I can't hear anything. Okay, I'm good.
Good morning, Michael.
Good morning, baby. How are you?
Good, thank you.
Good
Never
morning. Welcome to Hollywood Squares.
Yeah.
Will the clerk please call the roll?
Elliott.
Here.
Miracle.
Present.
Harrison.
Here.
Hinkleman.
Here.
Scott.
Here.
Curran.
Here.
Neats. Hugo.
Here.
Majerick.
Here.
Chickering.
Here.
Walrath.
Here.
Freeling.
Here.
Mr. Chair, you have 11 present, 1 absent.
Thank you. Jim, will you do the honors for the invocation?
It'd be my pleasure. Let us pray. O Lord, please guide us in the way that we should go in this meeting. We place this meeting in your hands so that you may direct us. With your help, we will do good work. Lord, we call upon your name as we face this coronavirus disease and humbly ask that you place your healing hands upon us. We will conquer this disease with your help and blessing. Amen.
Amen.
Michael, will you lead us in the pledge, please?
I will have to put my computer down, so
Okay.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of
the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
It's like an echo chamber. All right, we have minutes from a week ago, which the clerk sent out.
May I make a
Any
motion?
changes? Ma'am?
May I make a motion?
Yes, ma'am.
I'd like to make a motion that we accept the minutes.
Is there support?
Wait, Yarborough.
Okay, moved by Yarborough, supported by
I'll support it, Chris Hugo.
Harrison by a nose.
All right.
Will the clerk please call the roll?
Yarborough.
Yes.
Harrison.
Yes.
Hinkleman.
Yes.
Scott.
Yes.
Chickering.
Yes.
Walrath.
Yes.
Freeling.
Yes.
Curran.
Yes.
Hugo.
Yes.
Majerick.
yes.
Elliott.
Yes,
Mr. Chair, you have 11 yeas.
thank you. Madam Clerk, any communications?
Yes, you should have received 4 communications. The first one's from Adam Rochefort, St. Joseph, an email requesting the county to reopen, received on May 15th. Menominee County Board of Commissioners, a resolution in response to Executive Order 2020-77, received on April 24th. John Crows, Executive Director of Strategic Leadership Council, and Mike Geary, Chairman of the Best Practice Committee of the Strategic Leadership Council and Mayor of the City of St. Joe, invited you to an educational forum regarding the response to food insecurity and the impact of COVID-19 on Berrien County families on Thursday, May 21st from 9 a.m. to 10:15. A resolution from Tuscola County Board of Commissioners to move to Tuscola County Court, received on May 19th. That's all.
Thank you. Scheduled discussion is next. Bill, did you have anything preliminary to that?
No, I'd just like to introduce Evan Smith, our transportation coordinator, and take it from here.
Thanks, Bill. Good morning, everyone. Can everyone online hear me if I speak at this volume?
Yes.
I hear you.
All right, good deal. Well, I'll get right down to it. I sent out a memo to hopefully provide a little information and some context and background on what we want to talk about today. I know you guys have some important work to get to, so hopefully you had the chance to review that memo and give you, like I said, some some background on the presentation so that we could get through this quickly and get to the discussion part. So, Annette, if you want to flip for me. There we go. So just a quick kind of agenda of the presentation. First, I want to just briefly talk about and review some recent Berrien Bus events, kind of going back to the start of the year. Give you an idea of kind of what's happened up until this point and has kind of triggered this discussion. Secondly, just want to do a quick review to kind of refresh everybody's memory on the Berrien Bus financial and operations summary, to just kind of remind everyone of how our expenses and revenues work. That should hopefully inform the discussion after that, which is to review a couple of options we have available to us in the recent future, given the light of recent events. So, and then last but not least, we do have a staff request, which we're going to ask, not for an official decision today, but sort of a go-ahead with the plan that I'm going to lay out throughout the rest of this presentation. So, Annette? All right, so as we're all aware, starting on January 1st of 2020, the Berrien Bus pilot program kicked off, ran January, February, and the first part of March until obviously we were impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. March 18th, unfortunately, due to the governor's executive order, we had to make the decision to suspend all flex route service as well as all non-essential demand response service. So essentially, we brought the service down to essential only trips as described by either the governor's office or local health officials, which would be, medical appointments, trips to grocery stores, things like that. You combine that with the fact that a lot of our contract service, like, with all the schools being closed and Berrien RESA and all the human service agencies that we work with, suspending programs right around that March 18th time as well. Our Berrien Bus operation, we operated at around 25% of expected capacity for April 2020. We expect May to come in around the same. So we are really kind of operating at bare bones essential only services right now. Due to that, and I will say due to some other factors, Transportation Management Incorporated, or TMI, the company, the contractor that the county has used since the inception of the Berrien Bus program, notified us that effective June 30th that they were going to be terminating all of their current existing operating contracts. So that would include operation of the Berrien Bus system, the Buchanan dial-a-ride system, along with Cass County Public Transit and Dowagiac dial-a-ride. I want to point out, and I pointed this out in my memo, I know this is a little alarming, and certainly it was alarming to us, but I want to stress that TMI's decision is not an indication of the financial impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on the Berrien Bus operations. There's I think more to it than that. They're kind of looking out over the next 2 years with the uncertainty that we're facing, and just from my viewpoint, I think that there was a good chance that TMI at the end of this 2-year contract was probably looking at making a decision like this anyway. A lot of people that started that company, that have equity in that company, are reaching retirement age, and like I said, I wouldn't be surprised if this decision was made 2 years from now. And again, just from my perspective, I think they kind of looked at things and just said, let's move that timeline up in order to protect the equity in the company moving forward. So obviously that leaves us with a decision to make, but before we get into that, I just want to do a real quick review of Berrien Bus program expenses and revenues to give you guys an idea of where we're at. So with our expenses, using a contractor like we have for...
Excuse me, may I ask a question?
Yes, ma'am.
Evan, you said Dowagiac dial-a-ride. Is it Dowagiac dial-a-ride, or are you saying dial-a-ride in addition, our dial-a-ride? Benton Harbor, are they still one of the customers?
No, Benton Harbor, TCAT, they do not use or have any relationship with TMI. So really this discussion is doesn't include TCATA.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. So on the expense side, since we do use a contractor to provide day-to-day operations of the service, really we have two major expense line items, and that are vehicle hours and fuel. So when we negotiate our operating contract with TMI, we negotiate a per vehicle hour rate that we pay them to operate the service, and that includes, you know, hiring and training all of the drivers, the dispatchers, the maintenance personnel. We pay them on a per vehicle hour rate to provide that service, and then our other major expense item, as you can imagine, being a bus system, is fuel. So TMI currently fuels the buses. We reimburse them for those fuel costs. So as you'll see in the pie chart there, between the green, which is hours, and the blue, which is fuel, the vast majority of our expenses are just kind of tied into those monthly payments to TMI. We do have some other expenses, you know, liability and property damage insurance that we carry through the Michigan Transit Pool, the county's cost allocation plan that we use to seek reimbursement for county administrative expenses, and then we do have some maintenance expense for the vehicles and facility down in Berrien Springs, but the fuel and hours make up about 75% of our overall budget. Keeping that in mind, you know, we are projecting probably right around 32 to 35% reduction in expenses in terms of projected or actual compared to budgeted. It's really hard to project where we're going to head in the next remainder of this quarter as well as the fourth quarter of the fiscal year, just because we just don't have an idea of how we're going to be able to you know, ramp services back up. But based on my projections, we budgeted around 18,500 vehicle hours for the year. I'm projecting we're going to end the year operating around 12,397. So a significant decrease in anticipated operating expenses when compared to budgeted. On the revenue side, we primarily the Berrien Bus system is funded through state and federal operating programs. So we are, being a rural agency, we are reimbursed from the state and the feds based on a percentage of our eligible expenses. So under normal circumstances, we receive around 38% reimbursement from the state and around 18% reimbursement from the feds. So that equates to somewhere in the neighborhood of 60% per year, give or take, of program expenses that are reimbursed through those funding sources. And then the remaining is made up with local fare box and local contract service revenue. And then, you know, that red piece of the pie there, which is what we're always sort of focused on in terms of the financial health of the system, is that use of Berrien Bus fund balance, which is our retained earnings that we use to close out each fiscal year, which is essentially the, you know, whatever expenses we incur that are not covered with the revenue sources that I just mentioned. Go ahead, Matt. So speaking of fund balance, you know, I will say that since I've come on board around fiscal year 2015, we have operated the Berrien Bus system in a very, very conservative manner. And that has been on keeping an eye on expenses, seeking out additional contract revenue, and we've worked very diligently to try to get that blue bar, which is use of fund balance of around 140,000, down to where we ended up in fiscal year 2019 with the red bar, which is where we used around 40,000 of program fund balance to operate the system. A lot of that was, you know, during this time we were kind of in a holding pattern to see what was going to come out of the Connect Berrien plan to basically preserve the Berrien Bus fund balance, and until we you know, had an idea of how those discussions were going to shake out. And ultimately the decision we came to was to take that Berrien Bus fund balance, split it up over 2 years, matched with the county general fund contribution, and really take an aggressive approach in 2020 and 2021 in providing more service and expanded service to evaluate you know, the demand for that type of service countywide, but, obviously, as we've talked about, those plans are at least on hold for the time being. So, Annette? So the COVID-19 revenue impact on the Berrien Bus program, we're projecting fare box and contract revenue to be down 50% budget to actual. The really good news in all of this is that our federal reimbursement percentage, which I mentioned earlier, is normally 18%. Due to the passing of the CARES Act, that funding for all of fiscal year 2020, which again for us is October 19 to September 2020, and fiscal 2021, has been increased. In fact, it's been doubled from 18% to 36% due to the increased revenue administered through the CARES Act. So that is a huge shot in the arm for rural and urban agencies alike. So Niles and TCATA also received additional funding. They're funded differently than us because they are urban agencies, but all of us are scheduled to receive about twice as much federal money for this year and next year than we had anticipated. So that is really good news, and that really, like I said, is a shot in the arm for these agencies. Looking forward, MDOT is projecting a $30 million revenue shortfall, which obviously is expected due to everything that's gone on. But initial indication from them is that they feel like they can cover that shortfall without having to dip into any of the operating programs. They've currently put temporary layoffs in place, and they're looking at other avenues to cover that shortfall outside of dipping into the local bus operating. But obviously, and I'm sure you guys have talked about this in previous meetings, the status of the state budget and state funding moving forward is unpredictable at best. There is also $10 million that MDOT has set aside from CARES Act funding that is going to be used to cover what they're calling lost revenue. Kind of remains to be seen on exactly what that's going to look like, but as soon as we receive guidance, we will be applying for lost revenue through our contracts that have not been able to operate. So go ahead, Matt. To break this down in more of a bite-sized piece here, if you look at kind of our per vehicle hour cost. So on the left there, we have budgeted fiscal year 2020 expenses and revenues, estimating that it costs us $50 per vehicle hour to run the system, with 38% of that, or $19, coming back from the state, 18% of that, or $9 coming back from the feds, around $10 of local fare box and contract. That leaves us at about $12 in local revenue that we need to come up with under normal circumstances to operate the system. And so that revenue is about 56% state and fed, 44% local. With the added federal revenue through the CARES Act on that right column there, you're looking at 38% state at $19, which I would anticipate that percentage to go up due to statewide transit expenses, I'm sure, coming in much under budgeted. But with that 36% federal, the doubling of that pot to $18 an hour instead of $9, now we're looking at $3 an hour local revenue needed in comparison to $12 an hour local needed. So, it's hard, it's difficult to say that any of this is good because the COVID-19 pandemic has been so tragic, but strictly financially speaking, the response for the federal government, I think, is really going to outweigh the financial kind of shortcomings that are created through the COVID-19 pandemic. So really, it's just a long way of me saying, financially speaking, I don't project this to run us out of business or anything close to that anytime soon.
Evan, I'm interested, you earlier on said that the fare box that we're getting because of decreased ridership was 25%, but you're showing instead of $3 on the fare box or $2.50 on the fare box, you're continuing $10 in your assessment here.
Yeah, that includes contract revenue. So if you include fare box and contract revenue, it makes up a bigger piece. And we're looking at fiscal years, so we have basically October, November, December, January. January, most of March built into this. We're not talking January. So, and again, this is just kind of to give you an idea on the impact of local funding. That fare box is really difficult to purchase.
20%.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have a question. The local contract revenue. What are we doing? And what projections do you have for, schools may not reopen? And that's a big part of your contract. So if schools don't reopen, there is no money coming in from contract.
Correct.
So where is that price picked up at on your charts?
There would be no money coming in from contract, but there would also be no expense really because we're not going to be providing the service. So it's sort of a wash.
So what you're saying is that we don't operate, it's a wash even with all the contracts. So we're barely making it with the contracts that we have. It's a break even to have these contracts. That's kind of what you're saying, because if it's not gonna matter, it's not gonna matter.
Yeah, the contract revenue we've always used to kind of subsidize the fact that since we don't have any local funding, you're not gonna make up anywhere near what we need to make up in just general public ridership. And so that contract revenue has helped boost that, but to be frank, Commissioner, we don't know. We don't know what's gonna happen with the schools, we don't know what's gonna happen with human service agencies, and we do have some more, now that we've got this decision that was, handed down to us from TMI, we do have some, I'm working on doing some more kind of forecasting, but it's difficult to do because it's guesswork. We are starting to see, I think, a little bit of the non-school contract service come back online a little more. I think they'll be obviously the first to come back before the schools. I think contract service will come back before general public service comes back. So if we operate in a way where the majority of our service in the short term is contract service that we can charge, that we charge our hourly contract rate at, and we're receiving that higher level of reimbursement, strictly financially speaking, I think we may, end up in the black for some of those hours that we run. But on the other side of that, being a public transit agency, that's not really what we want to do. We want to be available for the public. So, we're projecting and estimating, but it's difficult business right
now. I have a question, Mamie Yarbrough.
Yes, ma'am.
I want to know is what our committee has committed for 2 years to give dollars to transportation. Was it $1 million?
No.
I'm sorry, 100,000 a year for 2 years.
How much? 100,000? Are the 2 years?
Yeah.
Are the 2 years up? We're in the first year? What year are we in?
Well, hang on to that question for now, Mamie. I'm going to answer it in the next slide.
All right, thank you. That's what I wanted. Okay, thank you.
Sure. Yep, so to kind of put some real numbers to this, here's our fiscal year 2020 budget compared to projected. We are, like I said, we're projecting about a 38% decrease in overall expenses. And when you factor in the 36% federal compared to the 18%, and the fact that and we'll leave it up to this board, but my suggestion would be, as Commissioner Yarbrough mentioned, that there was a county general fund contribution made for calendar year 2020 and calendar year 2021. I don't anticipate that we will be using those funds in this year. And so, we would like to save those funds or have a different discussion about those funds, if and when we are able to ramp back up the pilot program, because that's what we were going to use those funds for, to match Berrien Bus program fund balance to make up the operating losses from running those expanded hours. So as it stands right now, we haven't spent a dime of county general fund money, and we don't really expect to this fiscal year.
That's, excuse me, that's Mamie Yarborough. That's exactly because I said now with COVID dollars, will Berrien County still need to put in dollars? Thank you. You answered everything.
Sure. You know, where we're projecting for now is that, you know, we had anticipated using around $70,000 of Berrien Bus fund balance for fiscal year 2020. If you look at it from a calendar year perspective, it's a little different because that's 12 months of the pilot program instead of 9 months, which was would be under the fiscal year. But we were projecting around $71,000 use of fund balance. With everything we've just discussed, as it stands today, we're projecting around $32,000 in fund balance, and that's assuming no uptick in state operating, which, you know, we should have, I think, some guidance on where the state thinks they're going to come out on local bus operating, hopefully within a month.
Terry, did you have a question?
I do, just in trying to better understand the total estimated expenses. Evan, based on those numbers, where are you estimating gas prices at in those expenses? Because they've significantly taken a downturn.
They have. We just stuck with the price that we've seen, kind of an average compared to what we saw before the prices dipped and where they are now. But, you know,
so staying consistent with that price.
Yeah, we're like I said, we're kind of using. I don't want to project that prices are going to stay as low as they are now. So we kind of used an average of what they normally are compared to what they are now. But you know, that is if anyone in this room can predict what gas prices are going to do, let's talk. Maybe we can make some money.
I can project that. They'll go up 30 cents a gallon in an hour at any given gas station at any given time for absolutely no reason.
That's right.
That's a good prediction.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Annette. So hopefully, I know some of this, some of the financial stuff is a little difficult to wrap your hands around. Hopefully, I didn't muddy the waters too badly there. But back to kind of the discussion of the day. You know, with TMI essentially going out of business effective the end of June. You know, we immediately went to work on putting together some options to get in front of you all to kind of make a decision on what we're going to do next. And so in working with NDOT and TMI and some other folks, it basically came down to, in the short term anyway, two options. Option one, which would be the staff recommendation, Berrien County operates the Berrien Bus program directly, utilizing primarily former TMI employees turned part-time or temporary county employees. All administrative functions currently provided by TMI via contract would be absorbed by existing county staff, and we've been in contact since the TMI operates the City of Buchanan system as well. We've been in touch with Bill Marks and Julie down there about Berrien County operating the Buchanan dial-a-ride system out of our garage down in Berrien Springs, which is currently already happening, but via kind of this three-way contract between the county, TMI, and the City of Buchanan.
Can we stop there for a minute? And Mac, I'm conscious of time here. I don't know whether we're going to want to continue, because I think this is a huge issue. I want to know about TMI. You kept referring to the equity. Seems like their equity is our contract. And I want to know how many of these employees you're talking about are TMI owners. I mean, is that part of the equity, is continued employment? I think there's a raft of questions on this topic, Evan, and I want to give you the opportunity. I know we have something else that was supposed to have kicked off.
Well, I do have a bit of that, kind of what we were thinking, a few slides. But to answer your question directly, we don't anticipate hiring any owners of the TMI company to work for the county.
Well, there may be a related question that could compel us to continue this to next week. I'm wondering what we're hearing today. What was the feedback you had from the steering committee? Because I'm assuming it went there before coming here?
The Berrien County Transit Advisory Committee, no, we've not had any of this discussion with them. We got word of this, last Monday, and so our first priority was to get in front of you all and have this discussion with you all, since it's not really a countywide, it's not related to the pilot program or the countywide service, which is what we had tasked the advisory committee to do. Obviously, we'll go through this with them, but, June 30th is right around the corner, and so we need to, we need to have some direction.
May 30th is right around the corner. June 30th, we have a little bit of time.
We do, but when in talking to Shelley, if we are gonna onboard employees by July 1st, it doesn't leave us a lot of time.
Dave, your thoughts?
I don't have any questions right now.
Who else is on there? Jim? Curran?
I'm not.
I am.
You are, Bob.
And
Let's do
I
it.
think,
Let's do
like Bill was
finance.
saying,
Hold on, Mamie, 1 second.
the number of issues and the complexity and the impact this has on not just us in Buchanan, but also Dowagiac and Cass County, would seem that we need to bring together a group of people that kind of work through all the issues as soon as possible. And, I think it sounds like there's been a lot of legwork done, which is good, but there's just a raft of questions.
Well, Cass County and Dowagiac, they're doing right now the same thing we're doing, is, kind of assessing where they're gonna go next. And we had a conversation with basically everyone from Cass and Dowagiac, Niles, Buchanan, myself, and the state, because obviously they wanted to know what we were gonna do, and so those discussions are ongoing, but we didn't, during that meeting, we didn't see much value in, there isn't much crossover between Cass County, Dowagiac, and Berrien Bus Service. It's kind of two separate entities that kind of need to make their own decision, but yeah, I understand what you're saying.
Commissioner Curran, you're on the steering committee. What say you?
Well, I kind of agree with what's been said so far. There needs to be more discussion. Kind of got, dropped in our lap here at the last minute. And I think I would like to know if we inform the advisory committee what their thoughts are.
All right, Terry?
Well, I had served on the steering committee when we first were talking about, how to move forward with different options, and I think it's important that this be brought back to that steering committee for the members that are on it currently, for them to kind of vet this out. I think that there's a great opportunity here for the potential of being able to take a pause and figure out what Berrien Bus can look like, perhaps moving forward to better serve the needs, particularly post-COVID.
All right.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
the steering committee's role is in rolling out a pilot program to provide services countywide. This could have very easily been taken to the parent committee too, but we opted to bring it to the whole board because it's moving so quickly. And we don't have a lot of time. A week isn't gonna matter, but we don't have a lot of time to discuss this. Nobody saw this one coming. But Evan is more than, what Evan's ask is, and I don't think you quite got to that slide in your presentation, is that they would like to move forward and put some more flesh on these bones to provide a skeleton, essentially a skeleton organization that keeps Berrien Bus alive until we can sort things out on a longer term scale as to whether what can be done down the road, whether another provider may step in, whether we want it to be a true county department with internal employees. But right now, the issue is pretty straightforward. We've got about less than 6 weeks to either put a caretaker organization together or to essentially begin a process of liquidation. So This is not a plan. This is not a service plan that we're proposing. This is a survival plan until things get better and we can put a service plan back together with the pieces. Evan, is that about right?
Yeah, and that, you want us to click all the way to number, click ahead.
I can't come back.
I know.
Keep going.
So this is just real brief. I know you guys have important stuff to get to, but so this is currently what we have staffed right now. A full-time transportation and planning coordinator, myself, full-time operations manager, full-time equivalent assistant manager, and then a combination of drivers, mechanics, dispatchers, maintenance personnel. They all currently, everyone on that screen currently works for TMI except for me. You want to click forward? Go ahead.
One more, sorry.
Our preliminary, you went one too far. Our preliminary plan is to look into the possibility of retaining somewhere around half of those employees, all on a part-time basis, and have myself assume the operations manager role in an effort to basically get the program as lean and flexible as we can, starting on July 1st, limit expenses, allow for the continuing operations of Berrien Bus on July 1st, because as of right now, we will not have any drivers or dispatchers or maintenance personnel if we don't make a decision in time to have that staffed with county employees, part-time county employees by July 1st. And then once we are able to do that and continue operations, then we can flesh out all of the other options that are available to us, whether it's rebidding the contract and seeking another provider, whether it's looking into the idea of consolidation, you know, what have you. But for the time being, I just, you know, I'm certainly in agreement that we want to have a discussion of the ramifications of all of this with our advisory committee, but for right now, you know, we have sort of an internal decision to make about whether or not we think this is something that the county wants to pursue, and that's why we came here this morning, basically to ask for the go-ahead to put together a more detailed plan that we can bring to you all in 2 weeks for a decision, and give us 2 weeks to answer questions and work through this in a more detailed manner. But we don't want to work towards a plan that involves bringing on new county employees without, you know, discussing it with you all first.
Back.
Bill first.
Yeah. I appreciate this, but this is real complex stuff. And I'm going to be a lot more comfortable if the people that have worked this project through over the past couple of years, even though as Bill says, their jobs are over, I think that's great foresight and experience to bring to the table, to sit with you and Dan and talk about these issues, and then they can come back and advise us, as Mac was asking, the right things. I don't think delaying for 1 week to get those members up to speed is going to fundamentally change anything. Bringing people on board can be done, but I think we need to have some thought now before we see 2 weeks from now a final plan. That's my opinion.
You mean the Transportation Advisory Committee?
Correct.
Okay.
That's my opinion.
And the steering committee, I'm sorry.
What did we call it?
What steering committee?
Jim and Bob, and who else
Right.
is on there?
Terry.
Okay.
Those people.
Um,
Our BCAT committee?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of my initial reaction when this happened, was maybe we should have a discussion with the BCAT committee first, but due to the time constraint, we thought, let's just get in and start
I
talking about
asked
this.
this question when you say VCAT, do you mean the 3 county representatives? Because do we want to have a bunch of other people at the table deciding what the county is going to do?
The 3 county representatives. What I was thinking of as the steering committee was the county commissioners. And like to have them looped in before next Thursday. Jim Straub called me, and he needs some time with us next week on litigation. I told him to call you. It was last night. I don't know if he's called you yet. I said, how much? He said, well, I can do it in half an hour. I said, 20 minutes would be better. And 15, I'll buy you a McDonald's burger at the drive-thru. but, you know, he's gonna need 20 to 30 minutes. And we're gonna need to deal with this.
Sure.
So we may need to just plan on taking a little extra time next week. I think we will be meeting on the 4th of June, because we're gonna be looking at this in a couple of weeks and who knows what else. So, you know, I was hoping coming up we could take that week off, but I don't think we can now. So why don't we plan to continue this conversation next Thursday? Okay?
And so in the meantime, you'd like staff to work with the BCAT commissioners on
Yes.
just working this through a little more?
Absolutely.
Matt,
Yes,
I currently do not serve on the BCAT.
I thought you did. Okay, well, you are now, so.
Thanks for raising your hand.
Well, that solved that.
Professor, you had a question?
I only have one question. You said you got that, you got that 4 days ago, Monday? Or a week ago?
Last week, Monday, they gave us the owner of the company gave us a call, gave us a heads up, and then we got the actual letter. And so my first reaction was, you know, how can we, you know, how can we try to work with you guys, TMI, to keep you going? And, you know, we had some initial discussions about that, and that obviously would have had to come back to the board if we'd have made any decision there. But right away, we just kind of got the indication that their decision was final, and so, you know, we needed to move on to trying to put together a plan that, you know, would allow us to continue operations on the 1st of July.
So we lost 2 weeks. We lost that week, because we had commissioners meetings, and then we lost last week, and now here we are.
Well, we didn't lose weeks, commissioners. We've been working around the clock to put together this plan.
I'm just saying, because now we have questions now, and that's gonna put it off again. That's all I was concerned with.
Well, we'll figure it out.
Time is of the essence.
Thank you, Evan.
Thank you.
Thanks, Evan.
Of course.
Okay.
Public comments.
Before we do our resolutions, we're supposed to take public comment on the resolutions, which would be the consent calendar.
Correct. And I do have one public comment so far from Tony Van Hart, and so his township is the purchase of the front rear axle from Cook Equipment related to the accident in South County recently. If it is, why is it not covered under insurance since it was a vehicle accident? I do have one more comment, but that is gonna be, that will be general comments. And so I'm just gonna check one more time about any other comments on resolutions.
We'll figure it. That's it?
Hang it 1 second, I'm just double checking. Hasn't caught up yet.
I mean, want to have lunch going in next week. Malchus Straw tends to take a lot.
Sharon?
And being good.
Donnie Meeks is on.
Since we're beating out.
Okay. Just where I can see it, so I figured I'd let you know.
We can meet for more than 10 people.
No,
Wasn't that her ruling this morning, Bill, that the 10-person rule is suspended?
No, it's in place. She will allow small groups up to 10 with social distancing, I think is what she said.
no.
Oh, I thought that was the rule already.
Well,
We're at 10 right now.
Well, we will be.
Yeah, exactly.
okay, there aren't any other public comments about the consent calendar. Is there a motion to approve the consent calendar? I don't see any added resolution, so it's just what was emailed out.
Make a
Dave,
motion.
Dave moves to approve it. Bob seconds. Is there any discussion about the consent calendar? Hearing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Yarborough,
Yes.
Harrison,
Yes.
Engelmann,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Chickering,
Yes.
Walrath,
Yes.
Freeland,
Yes.
Curran,
Yes.
Hugo,
Yes.
Najaric,
Yes.
Needs. Needs, I said, I'll get it.
I read his mouth. He's.
John, give us a thumbs up.
Okay. Got it?
There we go.
Elliot,
Yes,
Mr. Chair, you have 12 yeas.
thank you.
That was good.
All right. Good, we all understand
Oh, mute.
basic sign language. Okay, we heard you as well now, thank you.
Okay.
All right, we're now at the point where we want to talk with Brian Bissett, I believe. Do we know if he has made it into the building?
Yeah, he's been here for quite a while.
Okay.
About 45 minutes. So.
Coming right into that.
Okay. Brian, how you doing?
Morning, Brian.
Morning.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
I'll put on my mask.
All right, yeah. We're desperados.
Yeah.
What was it?
Yes.
There we go. The Hole in the Wall gang, I think, Butch Cassidy.
Yeah.
And Sundance Kid. Except there aren't any trains around for us to rob. All right, well, I think everyone has met Brian or knows Brian through the course of business over the years. Can everybody on the screen see Brian?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, Brian, why don't you start by giving a rundown on your background? I know you brought some resumes with you for folks who didn't have theirs already. But since we're also in the context of a public meeting, this would allow the general public to hear some things about you. Does anybody need another resume?
I'm good. I'm good.
Sharon?
I'll pass one down.
Do you need one?
Matt, please slide Brian's table over this way. I mean,
You can come on up here if you want.
right?
Is that better?
Yeah.
We don't get to see your beautiful smile, but
Well, folks, I will speak fairly loudly just to ensure that everyone can hear. Thank you all very much for having me here today. Thank you, sir. It's a pleasure to be here. I think I've told all of you, just about 18 years ago, I was sitting across the hall, so this is exciting to be on this side of the hall. My resume has been passed out, and if, for the folks joining virtually, I'll make sure that an email copy is forwarded to the chair. I've been with the City of South Haven since July of 2006. I started there as the Assistant City Manager. I worked overseeing our public works operation. I did that until November of 2008 when I moved to City Hall. I actually joked that moving to the corner office was a downgrade, that our public works facility was a brand new building and had just a tremendous view. And then I got to move to City Hall and look at a parking lot. Now, with that said, it's been a wonderful atmosphere. It's been a wonderful opportunity. We operate approximately about a $40 million annual budget. With over the last 10 years, we've done just shy of $50 million worth of capital improvements. That's been extremely fulfilling. We've worked on everything from electrical substations to roll out of broadband in portions of our downtown. We've done extensive work on our wastewater treatment plant, water filtration plant. But the thing that we've really done well is just build a lot of strong partnerships. We've created shared services for recreation, for planning, zoning. We've improved shared services for our police operations, and then we've refined and grown our shared services for our ambulance and fire service. The thing that we've tried every day to do is just focus on building those partnerships, because South Haven's just 3.5 square miles. Our utilities spread out to approximately 20 square miles. Treating the townships as valued partners, treating the businesses within that area as valued partners has been what we focused on, and I think it's really helped us grow. Tomorrow I'll be assisting the City Council with cutting the ribbon on the last of the downtown streets to be completely reconstructed. So tomorrow at 9 a.m. we'll cut the ribbon and celebrate the completion of a $3 million streetscape project in our downtown that will reopen that area to businesses and pedestrians and vehicles. That's something that we've just tackled one after another. We have a dedicated capital improvement plan. We follow it. We are constantly looking at it. And quite frankly, that would be my goal here, is to work with your departments, to work with all of you, to understand the capital improvement plans, and then to actually implement those and make sure there's constant progress. I had the luxury of sitting out in the hallway and listening to this last discussion on transit. Congrats. You've got your hands full. Now, with that said, I've known Evan for a number of years. He's extremely competent. I look forward to hopefully getting to work with him on that and a variety of other projects. I can continue down through the list. Just quickly, I spent the better part of 5 years in the city of Waterville East. It was an absolutely wonderful opportunity for me as a young manager. I got to learn everything from writing community development block grants, budget amendments, to even driving loaders. So truly a great opportunity. And it really taught me a lot about the importance of essentially being a one-man shop. And that's something that I continue to carry forward to this day. Doing as much as I can myself and not asking anyone to do something that I'm not willing to do. Prior to that, I was here as an intern, working under Cindy LeGros and Mike Henry at that time. And then my background as far as education, I carry a master's degree from the School of Public Administration at Western, and then a bachelor's degree in public relations. Mr. Chairman, I tried to move quickly. I know we've talked about brevity, so I'll keep moving as quick as possible.
Well, that's fine. Appreciate that background statement. Does anyone have any questions for Brian? Better put my glasses on so I can see the screen a little better.
So, I do, Mr.
Terry?
Chair. So Brian, I know that you've been a lifelong resident of South Haven.
Yes.
So it is inspiring to me that you're willing to come to Berrien County. What was it about this position that intrigued you and made you want to apply for it?
So I have had both a professional and personal relationship with your longtime county administrator, Mike Henry. He's someone I consider to be a good friend, but also a mentor. When I was finishing my master's degree, I had a chance to intern for Kent County or for Berrien County. I chose to come here knowing that I was going to be in safe hands with Mike. Mike has been someone that, through my time in Waterville, through my time with South Haven, he's always been a really good resource. When this position came open, I definitely gave it a hard look. It was a call from your chair and a call from Mike that just built the confidence level to say that I'm ready to take the challenge. City of South Haven's been a wonderful place for me. I started with 0 kids, I'm leaving with 3. I am at a point with the City of South Haven. I've built an incredible team of folks that I work with on a daily basis. And I know that if I leave there today, they're going to be in absolutely fine condition. I'm eager to continue that team building effort. I'm eager to try something new. And I was definitely given a pep talk by Mr. Henry telling me that that I was ready. So that's why I'm here today.
You know, Mike came on board in 1988 after he had retired from the Army. I think his last position in the Army was commander of Edwards Air Force Base. Even though it's Air Force, he was Army, he was out there on the roof of the desert, and I think had about 5,500 people under him there. So he was competing with another candidate, and I think we wisely chose him. And then we've been fortunate to have Bill Wolf. So we've had 32 years of outstanding work from two administrators. And we're quite lucky as a governmental entity because so often there's fairly rapid and regular turnover, whether it's a school system or a city or whatever. You have the opportunity, if this all goes well, to have a similar tenure, to grow with us in this position. It might be a good time to talk a little bit about the engines that drive the economy in Berrien County and your familiarity with those and how you see those impacted as we head into the 2021 and 22 cycles because of the likelihood that the state is going to push costs down from Lansing to us.
It's a certainty. What's going on right now in Lansing, to the point where it almost feels biblical, with the things going on with the pandemic, with the potential for a statewide, if not global recession, and now the flooding situation in Midland. I think it's a certainty that Berrien County is going to feel the effects of the various crises going on in Lansing. Understanding how bad those hits will be is going to be a real challenge. Something that we will have to do is engage our local stakeholders. We'll have to engage our statewide stakeholders for the very best information. Starting with the good folks at Whirlpool, understanding what this will mean to their business, to their employment levels. That's going to be one of the top jobs. Jumping back to Watervliet, looking at that area, just helped me understand some of the value of the ag sector. Working actively to understand what this will mean to our farmers across Berrien County is going to be a major challenge, but we need to get into regular communication with them so that you all can predict what is coming. I made a list of the things that I think that we're going to need to tackle, but the biggest part of that list is just building those relationships, understanding the challenges that your community members are facing, starting with the private sector, working with the various chamber officials, with the various economic development officials, but just trying to understand how big of a hit are we going to take to the economy, how many people are we going to lose from this community, and developing strategies so that the county continues to maintain operation, continues to provide excellent service. I'm not sure if that directly answers your questions, but that's my view. Is it's going to, if the Berrien County Board wishes to partner with me, it's going to be my first job is to really build those relationships and understand the challenges that people are facing.
Question.
Building on that, Brian, if you would, you have a city commission that you have to deal with in South Haven. The administrator here, I wish Mr. Wolf were here and you could see the color of his hair, because it was a dark brown when he started. It's not anymore. You know, we have elected officers that are partners with us in the business of Berrien County. You just heard there are 12 fairly strong opinions on the Board of Commissioners that you'll have to work with. How how do you, and then obviously staff, 800 employees, et cetera. How would you see going about learning and, as you say, partnering with all of this variety of officials that we have?
I'm gonna pull this off.
Sorry, yes.
No, I'll put it back on as we get closer, but this comes down to essentially going out and interviewing. I've got to start with essentially the bottom of the ladder all the way to the top of the ladder, working with each department, introducing myself, answering any questions that they have, figuring out what their challenges are, and trying to stress to folks that 7 days a week I'm available for communication to hear their concerns. Something that I've done in South Haven is the entire time I've been there, since summer of 2006, not a single special event, not a single weekend has gone by where I don't receive at least one phone call. And it can be everything as simple as not having toilet paper in a public restroom to a major power outage. It is something that, between my wife and I, we understand that we are representing a community and we have to be available and have to understand the needs of the community. That's how I would attack this. It is getting out, making sure that people understand that I am there to work with them, that I am going to be respectful of their needs. I might not always be able to say yes, but I absolutely want to know what challenges they face. This is a job where, personally, if you're finding me in the office each day at a chair, that's going to be a problem. I've always been a fan of management by walking around. I am active in the community. I am going to be out meeting with department heads, meeting with each member of staff, and making sure that they know that I'm someone that wants to talk with them.
Thank you.
Yep.
So, Brian, if there's one part of this job that will wake you up in the middle of the night, what do you think that's going to be?
We're going through it right now. Just the complete unpredictability as to what the state is going to do, from the reopening of communities to the reopening of businesses, to trying to anticipate what Act 51 dollars will look like for road work, to anticipate what constitutional revenue sharing is going to look like, to anticipate what the jobs picture is going to look like. That's the thing that's keeping me up at night. Added to all of that, we're all facing high water effects from Lake Michigan. The potential for just massive infrastructure challenges is just looming. So trying to have confidence that as an appointed official, that you actually understand what the picture will look like 3 months, 6 months, 12 months down the road is the challenge that is haunting me at this moment, and I'm sure will continue to haunt me for the coming months. Yeah. Yes,
I got one. Brian, you undoubtedly have already looked at our budget.
yes.
Our budget guidance usually comes out 1st of August. How would you handle that in that 30 to 60 day time frame? I just want to get your ideas on that, because that.
So I've been reviewing the goals of the county. I've been reviewing the priorities of this board, and I think that I need to really get some understanding as to what this board is willing to accept in the form of cost controls. Is it as simple as short-term hiring freezes? Is it as complicated as potentially analyzing exactly how many staff are working for the county? Is it part of having a very in-depth conversation about benefits? Those are the things that we need to be looking at. I can tell you what I've been doing in South Haven is preparing for the worst. Our current fiscal year budget will be in effect on July 1. I made crystal clear to the elected officials that there will be multiple budget amendments as we go through the year, between our flooding issues and potential for major reductions in revenue. That's what we will have to do here. We are looking in South Haven at restructuring departments. We are looking at the potential for layoffs.
We are looking at the phased cutting of long-term benefits. Those are all things that are being considered. Now, the thing that I've always viewed it is I can bring a series of suggestions to the elected leaders, and it will ultimately be their decision on how much they feel needs to be cut. Prior to anything going to the city council, something that we always try to do is engage the department heads. I want to know exactly what the feedback is going to be from staff prior to doing that. So this is going to be difficult. Being ready to present in August will be a challenge. And I'm telling you, if extended this job, there is no doubt there will be a series of amendments through the upcoming fiscal year budget. And until we just have a better handle on what Lansing is going to do, there's no way you can say with complete accuracy.
Correct. Right. All right, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
Any questions from anyone on the television screen? Okay, if you think of any, just make a noise or wave or something. Bill?
Just one thing that came through when we first met Brian, on a positive note, you explained a little bit of the background on parks, recreation, community facilities. Obviously, parks here in Berrien County are one of our biggest priorities. Maybe you'd like to explain to the audience what you've been able to do up in South Haven and how it would relate to Berrien County.
Yeah, so something that's just a real point of pride is the South Haven Area Recreation Authority. We call it the SHARA. And SHARA is a partnership between the City of South Haven Charter Township, and South Haven Public Schools. That model was brought together to, in the short term, we were supposed to figure out how to improve our soccer fields. In the long term, it was supposed to help build the community. Well, we haven't done enough with soccer fields, but what we have done is captured acres upon acres of lakefront property and turned it into a public venue for everyone to enjoy. We are working now to finalize the purchase of $2.5 million of critical dune property that's located in the Charter Township. This is something that between the city and township, we do not have the ability to go out and write this check to acquire this property. It's through this partnership where we have had continual steps forward on acquiring lakefront property, and it's grown and grown, and really has turned into kind of what I would describe as the crown jewel. It is a series of parks that are adjacent to one another, that the first major donation came from an heir to Upjohn through the Southwest Michigan Land Conservancy. We were able to capture 2 rounds of grant funding to improve that site, to make it ADA accessible, to add parking, to add restrooms, and that's the Pilgrim Haven Natural Area. What we're adding now is referred to as the Porter Family Trust. It is a piece of property with roughly 40 acres that includes a massive critical dune along Lake Michigan. That method has worked incredibly well. Every single year, I've worked on the audits, the agendas, the minutes, helped with the grants applications. And I can say I'm not a board member, but I've been thrilled to serve that board. That model is completely, we can duplicate it. There is, about 6 months ago, I met with some officials from the New Buffalo area, talking with the supervisor and the mayor from that community about how that is so easy to replicate and how it will take some time, but once they get that momentum going, that it was a surefire way to capture the state of Michigan's attention and begin seeing the benefit of natural resources trust fund dollars. I would hope that we could take that model and advertise it actively to the communities across Berrien, because it's something that could be replicated.
Good. Thank you.
Yep.
Is there anybody else that has any questions?
John?
Sorry, I had to take a call from my dentist.
That's an important call.
Yes. Brian, if we put all this together, there are some things that get done. One of them involves going to get an exam from an MD, a physician. Then there's also a background check through the Berrien County Sheriff's Department. Those are just standard operating procedures. All of that we would anticipate would be unremarkable in the good sense. And then my understanding from talking with you earlier was that, to your credit, you want to get the budget put together for South Haven.
Yes.
So we don't have any loose ends dangling outside when you go. And we were talking around the 1st of July, more or less. Is that still looking like a good timeline for you?
Yeah, that would work.
Okay. All right. Does anyone have anything else? Yes, ma'am. Mimi?
Yes, Mamie Yarborough. I would like to say I'm thankful to have this opportunity to listen to you talk to us, Mr. Bissett, and the things that you mentioned, like the Road Department 51 and the streetscape. We work so much with different communities, helping them with things, and your familiarity will be a real blessing. I think what you've been doing is in microcosm, but with Berrien County, it's all over, and it's those things. You're so familiar with the high water and all the things that we need to happen. And I'm especially pleased to hear you say that you will work at things until they're completed. And so I'm just real thankful that we have this opportunity to interview you, talk to you, and consider you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Don, did you have a question? Don Meeks?
No, you.
I don't think we can. Hold on, Don. We're going to get your audio. Hold on.
I can't unmute.
I took myself off mute and I was just waving my hand. That's all.
Okay.
All right.
Oh.
Okay.
Old age.
All right.
I keep things moving.
All right. Then this concludes the interview with Berrien Bus. Brian, if you want to excuse yourself, we have a little business to take care of.
Thank you all very much. I look forward to continuing conversations. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Get your mask.
I'm looking for a motion to authorize the chair and the chair of personnel to work with corporate counsel to put together an employment agreement for Berrien Bus with a target date of 1 July.
So moved.
Support.
Any discussion? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Yarborough,
Yes.
Harrison,
Yes.
Enkelman,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Chickering,
Yes.
Walrath,
Yes.
Freely,
Yes.
Curran,
Yes.
Hugo,
Yes.
and Jarrett,
Yes.
Meeks,
Yes.
Elliott.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, you have 12 yeas.
Thank you. Did the personnel committee have anything today, pension refunds
Yes.
or anything else?
We do, and Mac, before we move on, I'm very happy with what we've done in terms of hiring Brian. I think that we need to, whether you want to lead the charge or leave it to PHSC, need to work to assist in a transition plan to better prepare him as he comes in to work here. I know Shelley has done these in the past. I think it makes sense to start going to work on that kind of an effort now so that we know exactly what his inboarding, as we say, will look like?
Well, I'd like to hear from Bill Wolf on that, because I think he has valuable information and experience that he can share as part of this transition process. But I don't know how to best do it. So, Bill, do you have any thoughts?
The only communication I got with Brian was yesterday. It appears from what he said that he would be able to make himself available for a couple days around June 1st. So we'll have some overlap at that time.
Okay. All right. Well, why not have PHSC work with the administrator and reach out to Brian and try to coordinate this. And if we need to do anything in terms of helping to facilitate transition, we can certainly do so.
Well, that's great. I guess I would offer our services as support to Bill and Shelley as needed.
Because Bill's safely steered the ship into harbor for several years now, and I think that experience would be something good for Brian to have and benefit from.
Great.
So,
Okay. All right.
So what would you do today?
All right. To your question, yes, we as PHSC every month have to approve pension rollovers and refunds. The committee has been given a list. There are only 2 this month. We as a committee have to vote on this through our new cumbersome thing, but we're all here live, so we don't have to, you can call a roll right here. You don't have to wait for anybody online.
Chickering.
Yes.
Lawrence.
Yes.
Breeden.
Yes.
Great. Thank you.
Did somebody, I didn't have a
Did we
motion.
make a motion or anything? I'll make the motion.
Was that just attendance?
That was a motion to
That was
accept.
the motion?
Okay.
I'll second.
Okay, Chickering.
Yep.
I just want to make sure.
Okay, so the motion was to approve pension rollovers and refunds
Correct.
as per the monthly procedure.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yep.
Pretty much every month, I guess.
Yep.
Okay. Any other business for PHS?
No, thank you.
All right. Mr. Administrator, you have anything to report?
Nothing at all, thank you.
Okay. Now, general public comments will be received. Anything under the sun, within reason. You want to contact John?
Alright, so I'm still working on trying to get what we need there for the public comments. Earlier, Adolph Peltzer, who I believe is from Hager Township, he did not give his municipality, but his comment was, this is new to me and I'm still navigating my way around. Why is Rocky Gap Park locked and Silver Beach is open? Kim Jorgensen Gain from the city of St. Joseph, and she actually provided this during Brian when he was speaking. How would the candidate describe the model for acquiring land is eminent domain used to acquire any lakefront properties?
Would you read that again?
Kim Jorgensen Gain from the city of St. Joseph, how would the candidate describe the model for acquiring land is eminent domain used to acquire any lakefront properties?
Thank you.
Julie Kiak from, I hope I'm saying that right, from MSU, but I, from MSU. I am so pleased with you, with your choice of Brian as the new county administrator. I have known him for 20 years. He is highly professional and experienced public servant. I look forward to working with him to adjust from city government to a life in county government leadership, and closely as a department head. We have had tough times, and I believe he is up for the challenge. And she has clarified now she lives in Paw Paw, so there's her municipality.
That's nice.
So we're closing public comment.
Okay. With that, the only announcement I can think of is we're closed on Monday, but we're kind of closed anyway.
But we don't have to answer the phone.
Right. We will be meeting next week, and I would anticipate also on the 4th of June. Lots of stuff to do. Anybody have anything that they want to mention? Yes, ma'am.
I do. I just want to give the board a brief update on the broadband meeting that Commissioner Kern, Commissioner Scott, and myself attended virtually with John Engelhoff from Southwest Michigan Planning Commission. He gave me cliff notes here to kind of just brief the board on what we've been doing. Since September of 2019, we have been working to build some of the different connections and linkages with local and statewide broadband experts. We've worked with internet service providers, academic experts, nonprofit experts, government, private foundations, tribal, and broadband entrepreneurs. One of the reasons that we focused on that was to build those linkages so that we could create a clear direction for us to establish partnerships that's going to ultimately get us to the destination of better broadband in Berrien County. So our purpose is to fill those gaps in the speed and the coverage that are not currently existing throughout Berrien County for broadband. And why those gaps are there is because it just doesn't make good sense in the private industry for return on investment to put infrastructure in a place where you really only have 1 or 2 households that will benefit from broadband. But we're finding more now than ever, particularly with the COVID crisis, how important it is to have reliable broadband access, which in my definition is a 25 megabytes per second download and 3 megabit per second upload. There are some ways that you can get to fill those gaps, and the most reasonable in our efforts is looking at different grant funding opportunities to bridge that divide. And federal grants are extremely complicated. They require a lot of data. And one of the things that we've been finding that's been stated consistently is that the FCC maps right now for broadband data are flawed in some ways with regards to what the definitions are for broadband and so forth. So there's really 2 options of how you collect that data and how you apply for those grants. One is that you hope for that there's someone in the private sector who's going to be very aggressive in expanding their broadband network. We just saw that happen in both Van Buren County and Allegan County. Both of those ventures were private ventures of individuals and organizations that applied for Reconnect grant money. The other one is more the approach that we're taking, and that's engaging in a systematic effort to collect the data that identifies broadband gaps, and then look to enter into public-private partnerships to submit the grant for funding to fill those gaps. So John has left us with some ideas of what to do next. We've clearly demonstrated that broadband is a priority for Berrien County. We've supported through a resolution for broadband. We've also made it a priority in our strategic planning. One of the most attractive public partners that John has been in communications with is the Merit Network. And for those that don't know who Merit is, they're a fiber network that serves education, government, and healthcare across Michigan. And they're ready to take their next big step into broadband, which is something that I think that we've mentioned before, the Merit Moonshot program. And what they're trying to do is to expand community fiber networks across the state. And right now, the first major step is collecting accurate data. They've just actually done and finished up a pilot program with Washtenaw County, and they are ready to look at implementing that same pilot in Berrien County. And so one of the things that we were talking about is what that looks like. What kind of costs we might be looking at just to do that collection. One thing I do know with most of the grant funding opportunities is that that may be a reimbursable if we are awarded a grant. Whatever we're doing on the front end to collect the data could be reimbursable with an award of a grant. And so John just wanted me to let you guys know that that's kind of where we're at. We're looking at talking to Merit. They're going to give us some numbers of what that might cost. And then we'll be able to come back to the board and talk a little more in depth moving forward from there. Another thing that I did want to hit on is that there was conversation about COVID response and the need for hotspots, particularly for those in the education system. And John mentioned that in a conversation with Merit Network, and they're going to help us to try and locate and secure a partner to be able to bring that to Berrien County. I think the mention was something like 5,000 hotspots that were needed here in Berrien County for education. So I hope that that was brief enough. Thank you for the time, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any questions about broadband? Any other information under other business? Okay, if there's no other business, we are adjourned to next Thursday at 10:30.
Stay safe, everybody.
Oh, you know what? I'm sorry, Annette, I forgot about another comment that came in late, but.
I will forward it to you in an email.
Okay.
And then you'll do it as communications that way.
All right, thanks.
I'm still live, 1 second.